Okay, good morning. I think we're going to start now. I'm really sorry about the confusion with the time this morning. I think it's knocked us all a bit haywire. But anyway, welcome to Track 5, Session 1. This is on talent development. And I've got two amazing speakers for you today who are going to talk about onboarding from two very different perspectives. And I think you're going to find this a session in which you've got a lot to pick up on. I'm imagining a lot of you will be doing quite a lot of writing, and there are some really great ideas to take away and use. So I have two speakers today. I have Ron Stock, and Ron is an award-winning people development consultant from ronstock.com. And we also have Stephen McNally, and Stephen's from Deloitte's industry. He's a learning leader for the UK, and leads on all things design and delivery with the Junior Talent Induction Programme, Consulting Academy, and Bright Start Level 6 programs. Ron's going to speak first, and after Ron's gone through his presentation, we'll take some questions from the floor. And then Steve will do his presentation, and we'll take questions from Steve's presentation straight after. And then we'll open it up for other questions that you might have. And the reason we're doing that is because you may want to compare and contrast the two different approaches that you're going to experience. Is that all right with everyone? All right, you're going to warm up. I know it's only session 1, but it'd be really nice if you could warm up, and I look forward to us having a really engaging session. Okay, so we're going to go over to Ron now. He's going to kick us off with his presentation. Ron Stock, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie. It's testing. Great. This mic is on. Fantastic. Welcome, everyone, to this presentation on creating an onboarding program with impact. My name's Ron Stock, and my experiences are in the HR field, but my main focus and experiences are within the talent management space, from attracting and selecting talent all the way through to retaining and transitioning them within and outside the organization. But my philosophy is simple: build high-performing teams through highly effective leaders. So, I've got global experience across the world. I've actually recently just finished 5 years at an organization called Checkout.com, where I was the director of people development, being part of the core people leadership team who oversaw the growth from this number to that and positioned it as the third most valuable private fintech in the world. Now, of course, it's had a lot of challenges. So we're not here to talk about me today, right? We're here to talk about this. Question for everyone in the room. Did anyone notice this in any of my slides before now? No, some nodding. What does this represent? Well, what this represents is my learnings, my failures, my journey, and actually, the present I want to give to you today in this session, AKA the secret sauce. All right, so I've comprised this presentation into 4 key components: analyze, scale, design, and impact. Each of those I'll walk through what I mean, ways to approach it, and some common pitfalls that I've experienced. My idea for the session is simple. I want to provide thought-provoking content so you can challenge your ideas, look at things in a different way, or perhaps discover topics and issues that may come your way in the future in the onboarding world. Let's begin. Analyze. What do I really mean? Simple answer: understand your business. Do not just walk in before starting this onboarding endeavor and apply the same remedies from yesterday, because they may not work. Really get to know who you're doing this for before you start anything. Let's talk about how you're going to do that. Number 1, get clarity on the growth projections for the next 12 months. This is an absolute must. Understand how many people are coming to this organization and how you're going to build a team that's going to adequately tackle that. But go further. Break down the demographic. Understand who's coming into the organization, not just how many. So let's have a look. Are they individual contributors, managers, executives? What department, function, team? Where in the world are they joining? And those 2 little presents there represent the company-specific nuances or interests you may also have. I find this particularly useful. Number 2, identify your key stakeholders and build great partnerships. We all know how difficult it is to release any sort of initiative, project, or change management when it's an uphill battle that people don't believe in. Also, it's our role to uncover the needs of the organization and do it through these people and help them, service them. That's how we're going to deliver impact. Let's talk about how we do that. Speak to them with the challenges and role imperatives in mind. When we talk about the challenges from an onboarding world, particularly in this day and age, we're talking a lot about logistics, setup times. I've lost count how many times I've seen a new joiner contractually start on one day, but receive the laptop 2 days after. Time lost. Role imperatives, what do I mean? I mean, sit down with them and identify the priority knowledge and skills that must be developed in the first 90 days. Make sure it's measurable. We want to talk about impact and progress, where we started and where we are. Get this question out there. Do it early and make sure we can understand how much we've moved. And number 3, explore your compliance requirements. Not the most ideal topic for a lot of people. Some people find it really interesting, but guess what? It's super important. So don't just understand what is required. Understand where we are now and understand who is doing it. Is it us, the people onboarding team? Is it the compliance team? Is it the HR team? This stuff takes a huge amount of time and poses a huge amount of risk if not done correctly. So before we talk about any illustrious ideas about having the game-changing onboarding program, let's make sure we got this fundamental down to a T. And then, of course, confirm your priorities, considering growth, stakeholders, and compliance needs. Think about the wider spectrum of how I'm going to build this team, where I'm going to do it. Okay. Scale. And when we talk about scale, we're always talking about building with the future in mind. Let's talk about this. People. Hire the right people into your team. This is the absolute starting point of what you're going to do, where you are today and what maybe you need to revisit. The onboarding team are the cultural ambassadors for your organization. They are the impression you want to leave. They are the conveyor belt between recruitment and walking through that door. That needs to be excellent, and the people you need in place need to be excellent. So be clear on the skills and experience required. This sounds like an easy one, right? But let me explain further why I'm pulling this one out. Onboarding is actually a quite difficult job. On one hand, you need them to be operationally efficient, incredible attention to detail. If you have manual processes and they're typing in payroll details, passport details, this is a critical piece to getting this done right. On the other hand, you need them to run first day inductions and put on a performance to capture everyone in the room, and even more so in a digital room. It's not easy. These skill sets are actually completely different, but fear not. You can certainly find them out there, but you need to be clear straight away that these are the requirements. A failure I've made is I wasn't clear at one point. I hired someone, and unfortunately, they were not the right fit, and that was my fault because I did not get both of them clear straight away. They were fantastic on one side, but really under par on the other. So solution, build a tailored competency profile. Make sure you're clear, get them jotted down. Work with different stakeholders to understand exactly what behaviors you need and you're looking for within that. Some pitfalls to avoid. Here's 2. Number 1, multi-role team members. Quick show of hands for those who are running onboarding teams today. Who here has onboarding team members who both do recruitment and onboarding? Okay, some people have that, right? And I've experienced it. Now, with this in mind, let me put another question to you. If this person who has recruitment and onboarding as one role has limited time and they have to make a choice, do a recruitment role, get someone in. Do onboarding, onboard someone they've already recruited. What's going to take priority, do you think? Right? Recruitment. Recruitment, why? It's front-facing, it's focal. And actually, by logic, if you don't recruit them, you've got no one to onboard. Right? So what happens? This starts to drop. So I'm not saying this is a bad idea. I'm saying it can be managed, and you need to be very effective with how you manage your team when they're doing this. Because I've seen this go wrong, I've seen this go well, but you need to look at the volume. And number 2, operational versus project. Think of this as reactive versus proactive. Operational, what are we doing and how well are we doing it? And then project, are we looking at what we're doing and innovating, creating, and building new ways of working in the constantly changing environment we're in? When we're talking about impact, we need to know who our users are, what's changing, and how we need to adapt to that. So make sure you allow enough time for that creative thinking. Otherwise, you're going to wear the team down, particularly in my experiences of a hypergrowth, growing from astronomical numbers, onboarding hundreds in every 2 weeks. People get tired, and they want creative work to do. Number 2, technology and processes. Invest in the right tools and automate as much as you can do. Here's one tip. If your team are inputting the details of one new joiner more than once, twice, okay, more than once ideal, twice okay, your processes are inefficient. If they're entering the name of the candidate, whoever this is, more than once, it's inefficient. And you need to look at that because you are allowing manual error to creep in. Processes are imperfect by design. Keep an eye on them. So even when you think you're doing a great job, right, at the point in this time, things may change tomorrow. Are you looking at that to see how they change? And are you really assessing that with your team? Because it's very easy to launch something, great, jobs are good in. But actually, it's changed tomorrow in the landscape of today. And number 3, the naughty sibling. Can anyone guess who the naughty sibling is for us as a people onboarding team? IT. Perfect. Someone just shouted out IT. I could not agree more. The one, the only IT team, aka computer, says no. Jokes aside, they are absolutely critical for an onboarding program with impact. Without this team on board, you can just forget those dreams straight away. We can talk about any idea, it's just not going to work. We need to build fantastic partnerships with these people, and we say this every year. We're at Learning Technologies, and guess what? We still haven't done it very well. Anyone agree with that? Want to see a few nodding heads? We need to do this better. Let's look at a few tips. Number 1, create a hybrid team with unity. Build meetings together, cadence meetings, invite each other to socials. Build the team of communication with each other. Don't silo this off just because of reporting lines. Number 2, co-create processes in tandem. Here's a quick question for those who do onboarding in the room. Who's been in a situation where your stakeholder believes that their hire is more important than everyone else's hire, and they say they absolutely need to join on this day, irrespective of your processes? Don't care, they need to join. We're going to lose money. I know I've been in that situation a hell of a lot of times, and I've faced off a lot of stakeholders on this one. So when we are in that situation, don't just say yes. Talk to your IT team. They're setting up your laptops. They're setting up the permissions. Commit to something you can commit together if you want to be one team. Live and breathe what you're trying to promote, and that starts with taking those pressured environments and still sticking to it. Number 3, build the team together. Why are we not interviewing for each other? Why are we not assessing the skills that the IT onboarding team need and the people onboarding team need as a collective? Why aren't we starting where the issues are given birth? We need to start there, help each other hire, be involved in the skill selection that we need to pick, and then get the right people through. Invest in each other's development. When it comes to performance reviews, get the peer reviews from each other. Don't silo each other. Build each other's careers, build each other together. Be part of one team. And that's the last piece. Emphasize this, that we are one team. Because we are, whether the name is IT or HR or people, whatever it is, we are one team. Okay. Next up, design. What do I mean? Create a memorable journey. Something I believe in irrevocably. There's a particular quote I love. They may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Right? I mean, it goes not just in your professional life, but actually in your personal life too. We're human beings. This is a beautiful saying. I really believe that this should be embedded all the way through, and it should be felt. Let's talk how. Build with the end user in mind. Does anyone know, show of hands, anything about design thinking in the room? A few people? Yeah, design thinking. So you'll know It's about creativity, innovating, failing fast, iterating again, and doing a human-centered approach to how you build everything. Let's talk about how you can do that. What's one topic that is constantly everywhere, the biggest boom potentially in the HR field right now? Okay, that is one, absolutely. Not the one I'm going to. Someone called out diversity. I'll help you out. Employee well-being. Everywhere. Everywhere. Platforms, companies, coaches, you name it. I'm sure all of your LinkedIns have messages from well-being experts. And to right, it's important. And it's so important, you need to embed this into your onboarding program. This is not optional. How do you do this? You need to show you care by embedding this in there. Don't just give them the EAP program you have and the free Samaritans call helpline. This is not even table stakes today. Embed this into the program that people experience and then go a step further, add optional learning should they want to take it more. So yoga classes, HIT online, meditation. There are so many fantastic providers and a lot of them who are here today. Maybe some in the room. Number 2. Live and breathe your values. We hear this time and time again, but what do I mean? Structure your inductions with your values at the core. Remind people what they are. Some people will already know, some people won't, some people would have forgotten. Get it in there, first day. They need to know straight away, but don't just teach them what they are. Teach them what they mean and how to live them. How do you do that? Embed them into competency profiles. Embed them into operating principles. Work with them. Something I've seen very effective is sessions with teams and the stakeholder and their teams to understand and unpick how they're living these values in their work. Super effective. Highly time-consuming, depending on your time, how big the organization is, but incredibly effective to build relatability. And number 3. Show your growth culture. What does everyone want today? To learn, to develop, to grow. Let's advertise this. Number 1, learn and develop. Show them instantly, within the first week, first day even, all the learning opportunities they have at their disposal. They need to be shown all the potential they have. Goals. Show them their role, the expectations placed on them, and make sure managers are getting this done effectively. Number 3, performance cycles. Make sure they know what it is, where it is, when it happens, and what to expect. Number 4, opportunities. How can they grow in this organization? What career pathing do you have? Internal mobility, global mobility, promotions, how fast can this be? This is exciting. This is what people want, we know this, but advertise it, push it out there. Number 5, reward. What is your philosophy? Be transparent, show you're fair, and show they've got a lot to get at this company. That's why they should be here. And number 6, everyone is a trainer. So everyone's a trainer. This is one of my most effective tactics to winning a few awards and being a finalist in a few places. Everybody needs to be a trainer on the things they know best. Number 1, keeping information in. Number 2, fantastic fluid motion of information transitioning across the org. And then number 3, the support you get. So the benefit of doing this, moreover, which is commonly missed, is the support you give to the trainers. Gamify it, give them certificates, send them on presentation communications training. Make it something that they all want to do. Because what do you have in the end? You have fantastic content, you have trained people, and you have people who are actually building up their CV. Everyone's winning, right? All right. And next, impact. Measure the impact of your efforts. The first thing, and the most important thing, data. But not just any data, measure what is important. Let's have a look at that. So there are many things. OKRs, satisfaction and engagement, KPIs, learning effectiveness, and attrition. But let's dive deeper. On the objectives and key results, something that is so commonly missed, before you do anything, the biggest impact is aligning your efforts to the strategy of the organization. Align it. Why are we missing this? Right? Partner with recruitment's numbers. You need to also onboard those people we've just recruited. That's a huge job to do well. Make sure you're in there. That's number 1. Satisfaction and engagement. Satisfaction from 2 sides. New joiner, right? the experience they had pre, during, and post onboarding, and the manager's experience too, and really unpick where we're doing well, where we're not, and the downstream impact we're having, as it will be different company to company, of what's happening there based on those actions. Then engagement. Measure this from the first week. It's table stakes. You need a great provider, get those information straight away. How pumped are they? Are we getting them pumped? Are we not? Gosh, what impact are we having there? Oh, we are. Fantastic. We're really getting them in excited. And then where does the drop off? And then further down the line, where do you start comparing the data from when they joined to performance levels, to goal completion, to length of stay? Then you start really opening up a world of opportunity. KPIs. Make sure you are measuring and tracking the key functions of your team. Make sure you're showing the commitment to the organization and a standard you are relentlessly keeping to. Learning effectiveness. Something I've personally done and learned from is don't just roll out learning courses and expect them to live on. Look at them again. But also assess how well learning absorption is happening. Are we getting the message across? Are people actually learning this? And I'm sure there's a few L&D experts in the room here who have fantastic methods to do that. Let's do it. Make sure we're really testing against the effectiveness here. Number 5, attrition. Really look at the 30, 60, and 90-day drop-offs. Those drop-offs are everything to you from an onboarding perspective. What was the reason? Now, there's multiple things that can happen there, but our role is to really make people successful in those first 90 days. And the last piece here is what I call, and something I'm working on now, I want to share with you, is the time to value model. Let's have a look at what this is. So it's really simple. On the left, we have expectations associated with a role of a new joiner. And then on the right, we have the reality, what they actually get done. This gives us a time to value model. Let's dive a step deeper now and make this really practical for us to understand. The manager needs to set 3 to 6 goals. They need to do this across 30 to 60 and 90 days. This is table stakes if you want to prove impact on your onboarding program. The onboarding team, well, we need to measure and learn from what we're seeing and use this as an indicator of our success. 3 things: the percentage of completion of goals, the time taken, and the status of probation. So how long did it take on the second icon there? Was it too fast? Was it slow? Was it? And then the status: passed, failed, extended. Because my question to you all is, if our role in onboarding is not to help people perform, what is our role? Why are we not focusing on this? I've scratched my head time and time again to say, how do I prove the impact? I think it's staring at us right in the face. We need highly effective leaders to build high-performing teams, and that starts straight away. So what do I believe this leads us to? I believe this leads us to the dawn of the rise of the performance-driven onboarding team, where they are so entwined through that process that they can't be split. That's what I believe. That's where I believe the future lies, in us really showing strong impact. To round up, we've gone through 4 key sections. Understand your business, build with the future in mind, create a memorable journey, and measure the impact of your efforts. It's been a pleasure speaking with you all today in this short time together. My name is Ron Stock, and this has been Creating an Onboarding Program with Impact from someone who failed a lot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ron. That was really interesting. Do we have any questions for Ron? Gentleman there. Trina's just coming with a microphone for you.
Hello, there we go. So the time to value model, I think the data model behind it was based on kind of subjective data from the managers. Would there be any evidence of kind of objective data that you'd use to build that model?
Separate to the goals, do you mean?
Yes.
Can you just dive a little bit further? What are you looking for exactly?
So I think on the previous slide to that, you kind of had the objectives and the kind of the reality.
Yeah, expectations.
So what data are you using to measure the reality other than manager opinion?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So I think first, we start from the beginning, which is having highly effective managers who know how to set good goals. Training them to set good goals in alignment with company philosophy and, of course, best practice. And I think actually that's where we really need to focus. But in a situation where you're building on poor foundations, absolutely. Then the model starts to be shaky. But again, bringing us back to that philosophy again.
Gentleman at the back there.
I work in the NHS, and obviously one of our biggest onboarding issues is the massive churn of junior doctors moving around the country. It's almost kind of a captive audience of they're moving, they haven't got a choice, they are placed in your organisation. How do you foster a high-performing onboarding culture when actually you know you're going to get them for 6 months and they're going, and to a degree you can get that satisfaction of you've done it well, or you can do it poorly, and the end result is still they're there with 6 months and then disappear again somewhere else?
Fantastic question. I think, number one, that's so meaty. We could probably take that one offline after this session, and I'd love to dive in further. But on the off, I think that whole transitioning piece, I would maybe look at the entirety of their journey rather than these individual successes or failures they may have. I'd also question a bit more behind the entire methodology. Who are they selecting and why? Is it matching up to the skills that are needed and the Joel and Rob, right? So we can really, the role requirements and the skills they have, are they actually matching up effectively to begin with? But I hear you. Then we have a different topic, right? We have a question of, is this actually a viable model in terms of knowledge acquisition and retention in particular parts of the team? Or perhaps, is it fantastic? Is it a really good way of getting people around to share different experiences? I think we could probably do that for quite some time, but I'd love to if you have time after the session.
I've actually got a story I can share with you on that as well from my NHS experience, and that's the Mamma Mia project. And that was for junior doctors who were coming on rotation. And in the Derby area, we set it up, or with the particular deanery, we set it up so they would do the same training in each location, which meant when they rotated, it wasn't, Mamma Mia, here we go again, I've got to take exactly the same training again. I can prove that I'm still in date until a certain point when they arrived, and it massively cut down on the time it took to induct junior doctors. So that's one for me, sorry. Yes?
Hi, another NHS worker. One of the things that I like about the model is the 30, 60, 90. At what point does recruitment own the onboarding and transition over to L&D for the induction within that? And what do you see as the differences, or is it all one process?
Great question. And one I have personal experience with, particularly at Checkout. So we started, a bit of a story here. We started with recruiters taking the entirety of the 360 onboarding model. So they were sourcing, really getting them through the door, getting the contract sent, onboarding them, being the true face. And that's a really lovely sentiment. I get the sentiment, but it started to fail. Drastically fail. Why? Because of that split. So my honest opinion here, keep recruitment. They need to recruit the people in. They're measured by particular targets on headcount, on how many people are coming through that door and meeting those expectations. Onboarding needs to kick in there. You can take multiple approaches. You can even have a particular team who just do contracts, because at such a stage, such a level, there's so much admin that needs to be done. It's detracting from the recruiters. And you know what? It's not even their best skill set. So I really think refining your recruitment team to recruit and then compartmentalizing that team, right? Because there's so many different elements to that, as we know. And then really kicking in the people onboarding team. after that, really from the point of contract signature even. And actually, we took away contract creation from recruitment as well, because it was just being done in different ways each and every time. So we couldn't really guarantee consistency, and we also had questions from the whole team to the HR team, which was overwhelming for them. So put it in the hands of the people who know.
So recruitment, onboarding, hand over to induction.
100%.
I'm going to have to stop the questions for the moment, but thank you very much. Yes, I am. Thank you very much. Ron, thank you very much. That was really interesting, and you'll have more time to ask Ron questions later on at the end of this session. Thank you very much, Ron, in the meantime. So now we're going to hand over to Steve, who's got a very different perspective. So, Steve, do you want me to say any more, or shall I leave you? Because you've got quite a lot to say on this beginnings. I think I'll let him introduce it.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks. Well, great, Ron, thank you. Some great insights there. And welcome to everybody in the room. Isn't it great to be back together again? It's been such a long time. I think there's been an enormous amount of work has gone into bringing this together. So if you don't mind, what we're going to do is just try a couple of little things. We're going to give Julie and the team a clap. And we're going to try and bust the soundproofing in here. So everybody together, thank you. Okay, and we'll settle it down again. So we're going to try something else now, just as we are coming back together again. So we're going to try an equally loud clap, only this time we're going to try to match my rhythm. Okay, so really loud and then match my rhythm. Wow, 3 seconds. Took us 3 seconds to collaborate and come together in a rhythm. Isn't it great to be back together again to achieve those sorts of things that we've missed? So I'm Steve McNally. I'm 6'1", identify as he, him. What hair I have left is brown. I'm wearing a grey jacket today, blue jeans, a white shirt, and red shoes. And I'm here today to give you a little bit more show and not tell. So what did we do along this journey that Ron so eloquently brought to life for us? And if we get some time at the end, it'd be great to have some questions, because I think it's the questions that really bring the richness to the conversation. And of course, with 25 minutes, the conversation doesn't stop. So if I can show you some stuff today that avoids you having to take too many notes, please do just look in. So today we're going to address a lot of whys. Why is onboarding important? Why should we approach a systematic system to get it right? And to Ron's point, we step through processes. Another why is, why have you got me? Why have you got me? So, a tale of two stories. I want to take you on a journey. A boy born into the Troubles in Northern Ireland in the 70s. Funny place to be. Deep divides in the community. Didn't really appeal to me. So I wanted to get out. So catapult forward to the top left. 18 years of age, I joined the British Army. And sunnier climbs in the middle and at the bottom with some African colleagues and a tour of duty that was really impactful in my life. Not everybody in that bottom picture actually made it to the end of that tour of duty. So as you can imagine, I've been fortunate enough to experience some really deep, emotionally connected stories and lessons learned along the way. And some of them I'll share with you today. And hopefully you'll see how you can bring some of those life experiences into your programs, make deep connections. Really important. Stories live forever. And then on your right-hand side, and there's already some people in this audience that are on the screen. We have Morton here from Solved, and see some of the other team. Great to see you today. Great partners. We'll talk more about that later on. Steve Edge in the middle, one of the most generous, imaginative people I've ever met in my entire life, has participated in some of my programs. And David Mead down at the bottom, another strategic partner who has come in and brought some life and colour to what we do in this space. So like I say, I've been fortunate to have some great experiences, work with some great partners. Where your experiences fall shy of what you're trying to achieve, bring those partners in. Look for people like Solved in the audience, and there are many more here. Sorry, I'm not from a deep learning background, so I don't know all of the great companies that are out there, but do bring in help. Bring in help. So I've been leading onboarding within the wider context of Deloitte for this past couple of years. So I've got 25 minutes to tell you how to do all that. That's just not possible. A couple of years of really deep work, complex things to do, and lots of things to build, and lots of conversations, lots of stakeholders to bring along on that journey, which is really important. As Ron said, stakeholders are key gatekeepers. Release the money, give you permission to do the things you're trying to do, but also help you along the way, if you get that proposition correct, of course. So what does it look like? Spending a lot of years trying to build something in an environment that's very complex and has changed enormously. I think we've all experienced elements of the COVID impact that has accelerated business, and specifically the area that we're in, probably comparable to some of the previous industrial revolutions that we experienced. So big seismic shifts. Some great stuff that we've discovered, some great stuff that we want to drop now, and some very new innovative things that we want to pull forward. So what does it look like when you do get out and maybe get people back together again? Come on. Should look like this.
We have got an incredible 5 days planned. You are just at the start of an incredible journey as part of the Deloitte family.
It's really important to jump in, be part of the program, take the learning for what it is, take the fun for what it is. Stick together, build that network.
Today and the next 4 days is all about giving you the opportunity to look at who you are and what you're doing from a bird's eye view.
By having these fun activities integrated within our AIP, it just shows that there's more to life than just working.
And you know, now we're not just on a screen, so there's actual, you can put faces to the names that you've seen like on Zoom throughout the virtual meetings that we've had.
So there we go. Like I said, it doesn't happen quickly. That's years worth of work. It's been through many different iterations of that program. And COVID did absolutely make us pivot, and we'll talk more about being agile within a sort of process-driven approach later on. So really, what we're trying to achieve with that is that we address the old ways of working and learning delivery. We've got to bring in experiences. We've got to be driven by things that people can really connect to. We've got to ask the new joiners what they really want. And that doesn't mean asking our stakeholders what they think they want. It means asking them. Okay? And we'll cover how we do that successfully later on in the presentation. You've really got to get to your target audience, really critical to your design principles, process, and then turning something like that into an actual experience for your new joiners. You've got to understand what the pain points are. Two sides to this, pain points for your new joiners. So what are they challenged with coming into an organization? Certainly, speaking on behalf of my own organization, we bring thousands in, and there's lots of things that frighten them. Big corporations, reputation, imposter syndrome. Getting underneath the skin of all of that there can really help inform the journey that you need to lay on for your new joiners. And it's very specific that you look at your new joiners, not mine, not what you see here today, but yours, your humans that are coming into your organizations. We need to be able to measure lots of stuff. Ron gave us loads of things there. Again, measuring stuff. So if we consider data is the fuel of progress, okay, you've got to capture it, but it's got to be right and it's got to be relevant. You've got to be able to turn it into something. You know, it's not really any good to have loads and loads of data if you can't use it. So make sure you go after the right metrics to make influence in your programs. The hybrid challenge. Wow, we could spend a whole session on that on itself, okay? But we will come back to that about how we might pivot or how indeed in a design process we might be able to achieve all three should we need to react. The hybrid challenge is something that's here to stay. It will remain with us in all of our programs, all of our work. And if we think where I was in the journey, and some of you might be sharing a similar starting point, if this was a cultural shift, I try to conjure up an image in my mind that helps me sort of grab that picture of what I need to do. And for an organization like mine, which is quite large, the culture, if we take the culture as the biggest oil tanker you've ever seen in your life, okay? So it's set on its direction. It's very difficult to turn. We potentially, as exponents of change within that mechanism, are the speedboats. So we can react, we can be agile, we can learn, we can move the paradigm forward, but we've always got to be cognizant that the culture will take time to shift, okay? So every time we do something really positive, we gather the data, we demonstrate it to our stakeholders, we get further support, and we keep nudging the culture. Cultural shift takes time. Nothing you can do really to accelerate that to any great degree. Okay, so how do we do all of this? I like a process. I think we looked at five things. If you want, we could call it a roadmap, call it whatever it is you need. You can add a new title to it. You can be, what you need to be within your process. Clear roadmap's really important because it allows you to each step knowing that you've got to where you needed to go within your design process. I always start by thinking, what is it at the end that we need to have achieved? And try and conjure up a vision for it. So that little highlights video that we've seen, I've had that in my head for 2 years. I've just been frustrated with this little thing called COVID. It's got in the way. But of course, when you have that vision, you're then working on that vision. Well, I have to pivot. So what does it look like from a hybrid point of view? What does it look like from a fully virtual point of view? And those restrictions, although they adopt your delivery model, they don't change your vision, okay? So you're really fixed on your vision. So, try to bring that to life. EQ considered. We heard our speakers this morning, and there'll be others, talk about the emotional intelligence element. When you involve the right people, you will get this, but equally we heard this morning about collective intelligence. Really, really important that you use the right people to design these programs, and you absolutely leverage EQ from your design process and your CQ from the people that you're using. So the collective intelligence is really important to inform good design. And for me, that was people in my business and people outside my business, people like Morton, Rochelle, and Toby and Solved. So we looked to bring a team together that could offer perspectives from all corners of the learning world. Values driven. So this is not about a poster on a wall. This is not about talking about your values or having a test. It's about demonstrating values in your design, okay? So it should look like behavioral shift. It should be apparent. It should feel good. It should feel right. If you get it values driven, I promise you, you will accelerate your success. Experiential. Show, not do. It's about being recce pull. So pull from your audience. That's that human-centered design approach. And then push from your stakeholders. What are you pushing from your stakeholders? Resources. You're asking for budget. You're asking for time. You're asking for support from the business or any other challenges that you face. But present the evidence. That is the recce pull, so all of your research. And we'll cover what that takes to get a firm like mine shifting forward, the level of evidence and data that we need to present. And then finally, emotionally connected. I'll come back to that later on with a little example that I think helps demonstrate what emotional connectivity can really achieve for you with your new joiners. And in all of this, you're thinking about three things for me. You're building capacity, you're building capability, and you're building loyalty. Okay? If we're to enter into this war on talent that we hear about, we've got to get this right before we can even think about winning it. So there's a couple of preliminary battles, I think, before we win the war or the campaign. And this is definitely one of them. So the right philosophical approach or process that you adopt will really help accelerate your potential for success. So in presenting to my stakeholders, I wanted to have a look at what does the case for change look like to bring them on that journey with us. There are 9 tiles here. I'm not going to talk to all of the 9 tiles. But you've got to present something that's going to excite them to move forward because it requires commitment. It is not straightforward to take a shift as significant as this in an organization, small or large. It's a big change. Comes with risks. What are those risks? Reputational risk, risk to your talent, risk in the marketplace, risk to wasting your budget. There's loads of risks. But it's about identifying a risk, take it forward. Does it become an issue? If it's not an issue, then we can apply mitigation. Good design, correct budget, being efficient, using our own internal skills. So a couple of things that I'd like to sort of focus on just slightly because we've touched on them already. Voice of the analyst. Like I said, human-centered design is critical upon you getting that evidence from your target audience. Absolutely critical. You will live and die on that principle alone. If you get that right, you can make little mistakes along the way either way because that's the center line, if you like. That's the meridian. And we can go left and right, but if we keep that as our true north, then we'll always be heading in the general direction, in the right direction. Some of the things that we wanted to look at, because obviously as a business, when we ask for investment, they want to know what that return is. Time to competence. In a professional services firm like mine, we need to get our people in, get them trained with the right skills, and then get them out working on our clients. Like many professional services firms at the moment, we're really busy. Everybody's super utilized. Internally, externally, very busy world. So that's a really easy way for us to demonstrate that we've added value. We've prepared people with the right skills, in the right amount of time, and if we think back to those 3 things that we're building, they've got the capacity to learn, they've got the capacity to do, they've got the capabilities because we've given them the insights, we've given them the skills, and we've created loyalty because we've looked after them right. So we're building on all fronts here. So it's multifaceted, it's very complex, it's very layered, it's very deep, but it's really, really important. And we also heard, and we will hear more about it, enhanced inclusion and well-being. So diversity and inclusion, I think weaves its way through our entire program. And that is, how we personalize the journey. We have an app. It's got a single sign-on. It identifies you when you come in. We break down our pod groups, our smaller rooms, They're broken down across the different diversity groups. But critically, and we heard this morning, diversity of thought is really important. Putting people in the room that bring different viewpoints. That's not as easy to achieve with new joiners because you don't have as much information on their personality. I won't have a chance to work with them. But we then have faculty, so that our faculty is our trainers, we call them, making sure that they are close enough to the journey, yet know enough to be able to impart great stories, great experiences, so that they can take those away as their own and help them build out our experiences, our exercises that are designed in the classrooms. Everybody loves a process. Okay, so look, there's loads out there. I'm a particular fan of this one, the 5DI process. Morton and his team run workshops in this, so it would really be worthwhile linking into something like this if you wanted a deeper insight. 5 things, keep you honest. Define, what are we trying to do? Discover, go and get the evidence, bring it back to the humans. What are we looking to do? What are we looking to address? How are we going to do that? Develop, get something on paper. Socialize it with your stakeholders, socialize it with your faculty. Test it, prod it. Do not be afraid of getting it completely wrong the first time. Just destroy it, start again. Just destroy it and start again. You will be forgiven for getting it right, having socialized it, over delivering it in a really shiny format that doesn't address the needs of the learner or indeed the business. And then develop those iterations, bring them forward till you've got a really polished session that does all of those things. Creates connections, creates stories, gives people an opportunity to practice some stuff. So it's that recce pool. So we're giving all of the evidence back into the design of the program, and then we're allowing people to do stuff. Okay, so it's showing, not telling. And then looking at deploying, how do you deploy the capability to do this? Venues, materials, supporting materials, your trainers, are all really, really important and should be considered along the way. So this looks like a very waterfall approach, and it is to a degree. Of course, we've faced an environment for the last couple of years where we've had to be very agile, pivoting from face-to-face ambitions into virtual, into maybe a hybrid opportunity, but then it's taken away because actually Boris has locked London down again. You can't get to a studio. So it's about designing across all of those platforms so that you just adjust your delivery model. But that little model up in the top is something that I pull from my military career, and it's called the OODA loop. It's a very simple little 4-stage process. When your brain's as small as mine, you like to be able to hold on to little hooks. So it's observe, orientate, decide, and act. So at each of these stages, me and my team, we're all thinking about what does this look like to the user? What does it look like to our stakeholders? Observing the landscape, what's happening out there? Are we going to be able to deliver this? Have we got the outcomes right? We make decisions and we act straight away. We act immediately. So we are operating in an agile manner in what looks like a waterfall approach to a process-driven outcome. So what does it look like? We've talked about how to create connections to your story. Well, these images are taken from a program we just delivered in March. We are together, and it was amazing to be together. We were in central London for the first time in a long time, and at a great venue that allowed us really complete freedom to put text and images up around. And we were sort of firm, generic. We looked at our values, our standards, our global initiatives. What do we do to connect our audience to our firm culturally? We want to build that. If you remember back, we're trying to build loyalty as well. Because talking to the 3, 6, and 9 approach, what happens in the attrition piece really, really quickly? Well, if you can't build brand loyalty, then you're going to see higher rates of attrition at those early stages. So we're after loyalty. What does that mean? It means making a connection to the new joiners on all levels, Because, there's lots of different personalities in there. There's the introverts, there's the extroverts, and we have to create an experience that connects across all those. That means creating opportunities to go off to a quiet room, which we had a quiet room. Creates opportunities to go off and pray, just take some time away. Loads and loads of things. You've got to make sure that everyone's catered for. But fundamentally, you're looking at the text, the language, the build-up of the sessions on the stage, making sure, have I got a diverse audience? Have I got a diverse panel? Have I got a diverse pod? Some of these exercises that you see here are actually physically done. So this one on the top left is a thing called the Manual of Me. And what we do in there is it's an opportunity for all of us. It's a tool that we use firm-wide, is we talk about our own personality traits. What do we want people to know before we join a new team? And it allows you to, if you like, forward navigate landing a nuance or a particular thing that you like, whether it's, I like to go to the gym, there's a particular class at 5 o'clock on a Friday. You're creating a contract with your team to be allowed to do those things, to be free, to be you. And when we talk about capacity, it's the capacities across a couple of things, and that capacity to do your job well, capacity to learn, but capacity to bring your whole self to work and thrive. So this is all woven into these considerations, and it's very deep. Along with other tools, we use, I think, called business chemistry, which is just like a basic psychometric indicator. It helps people work out the type of personality that they are and how we then build teams. And then the picture in the middle at the top is actually someone's laptop joining us from home. So we had a virtual offering. It's not as good as a face-to-face because obviously it's not as interactive and you're not with your colleagues, but it is close. And for those that can't travel for any reason, whether that actually be a work from home contract or just a shift to that style, then we can do some really great stuff in there. And at the outset, I didn't mention that this program last year in the 2021 awards with the Learning Technologies picked up Best Tech-Based Onboarding Program. And that's not that we were deeply buried in the technology, we just used a lot of readily available technology, but we used it really cleverly, interwoven and supporting each other to create great opportunities in these different spaces. And these three images, Toby will recognize these. He put these phones together for me some time ago. But they're actual images from our program. The bottom left, that's David doing a remote training session for our faculty. So we all joined in, learned the tools better, got some tips on presentation skills, got some tips on keeping the room alert and alive. In the middle, Nadia Hussein. Not everybody might know Nadia, but if there's any cooking fans, we had Nadia do, that's Nadia's kitchen that we sent remote cameras out to her kitchen, and she cooked dinner with us one evening. And what we were doing there, it wasn't about a celebrity chef, it was about highlighting the importance of nutrition in our youth. A lot of our young new joiners have to do quite a bit of traveling, and as you can imagine, it's difficult to manage your diet. So we wanted to make sure that we covered things that weren't just specifically about work. And then on the end is a picture of another new joiner, obviously not on the first floor, looking down from their desktop, and they joined us remotely. And we sent out physical things so that they were also engaged off screen as well as the on screen. And that can be a really elaborate pack if you're all in virtually, or just something really shoebox, some paper, some pens, anything that might surprise them, a tea bag, some coffee, things that a facilitator in a virtual space can say, right, I want you to close your screen down now and go and take the coffee bag or the tea bag and go make a cup of tea and come back, and you'll find a bar of chocolate in Tuesday's box or something. So really simple little things that connect the virtual to the real world, and we're always looking to keep people engaged like that. Okay, so if you remember back, right at the outset I said about making deep emotional connections. So the next clip will give you a little story into how you can do exercises that have a specific performance outcome base, team building, high performing teams, whatever it is you want. But if you're clever about your design and you scan the landscape, and this is when I come back to talking about partners to get other ideas, what else is out there? If you scan the landscape, there are often opportunities to embed activities that allow your programs to transcend the idea of an onboarding program, to transcend the idea that this is a corporate environment and reach out into society. So just have a little look at this.
We discovered these prosthetics that were really, really affordable, and for the next 60 minutes, you're going to build these hands. I need one person from each table, pick a hand. The moment that you've got it, you can start building.
Building the arm was huge for me. I was in tears watching the videos and hearing about David's son and the impact that he was able to have through this organization.
I've really enjoyed it. I feel like especially the task that we're doing now is really interesting. Everyone's working together, everyone spoke about what they felt like they would be best at. Some people thought they would be best at building it, some better at the creative side. So just listening to each other.
It's incredible to know that somebody out there is going to be using those arms for their life, basically. It's just an incredible feeling to have that.
I think it's been great. So we've spoken about making an impact at Deloitte, and making an impact's really big. We've had a lot of sessions on it, but I think getting to do that before our first project, we're really getting that chance, and it's been really great. And we write a message and it goes to somebody. So we may never meet them, but we've made an impact in their lives. So I think that's really great.
Seeing the company choose that as a part of this week really spoke volumes to me.
It really does mean the world to me that a team here would have us come along and do this with you, and it means the world to me that all of you have overcome the challenges that you have to build these hands.
Wow. So I said also I would connect the picture at the bottom on the left-hand side from my own military career. Not everyone that was in that picture made it back. That was in an area called Sierra Leone in West Africa. And for those that you remember, they've gone through, much like my own country, some significant periods of unrest. And as a consequence, there are lots of children in Sierra Leone who were too small to become soldiers, boy soldiers, that had their hands removed above the waist. And I'm hoping that we bring that out to Sierra Leone. So it shows there's opportunity to transcend your programs, your corporations, and take that out into society. Deep emotional connections. Okay, the data. If data is the fuel, progress is the result. Okay, so look, there's loads and loads of data. You've got to get what's relevant for you. We looked at a number of things, not just these 4, but I thought these 4 would probably be most useful. NPS score, a bit of a benchmarker. It's quite familiar out there in the learning world. It was new to me at the time, I have to say. I'm not from a deep learning expert background, but 89.7, which after further research I led to believe is quite good. So we were particularly pleased with that to get a little bit of support to carry on the motion. And since then, now Deloitte, right across the firm, has dropped this approach into all of our service lines. So I'm working on a new service line now coming up for their summer intake to bring this type of thing across our firm. And indeed, other areas of learning. And it's a simple switch. Stop telling people what you think they need to know. Ask them, what are your challenges? And then give them something that they can practice. From my military days, we used to call it EDIP, explain, demonstrate, imitate, and practice. It's really simple. Get a chance to do some stuff. 95% were excited, welcome, and proud to join our firm, talking about creating loyalty. 77% felt prepared for their role just after 1 day. Now, they were probably being a little bit ambitious with that, but we had a few more days to carry that work on. But it was a great start. 82% of participants felt energized and ready to take the next step of their career. We wanted to create invigorated learners as a part of this. We didn't want a program full of victims. We wanted a program full of active participants. And then we had a slide earlier on around vision and the 5 things that we wanted to hold ourselves accountable for. Right across the top, you don't need to read all the slides. I believe the slides are available afterwards. But if you just look at some of the qualitative data for me is the real rich bed of this, where you are taking the personal experiences. Great, valued, safe space, slick, diverse, constantly stimulating, all music to my ears. Because of course the big risk for me is, I push this forward, it fails, Steve gets to apply for a new job. Not really. It's not as cutthroat as that. But of course, you hold yourself accountable. And in summary, I'm not going to take us through that. We talked about being agile. That's my roadmap. They were the 5 things that kept us honest along the way. And I think we've shown you that it can work if you get across all of the detail. Time. You do need some time and resource. Keep the conversation going. I can only tell you so much. You have to fit it to your own organization, your own people, and there will be nuances. But there are some big things in there I think you can pull from common ground. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you very much. I did actually say thank you very much, but I forgot to put the microphone on. Well, that was very energizing, wasn't it? So, anybody got any questions that they've
just easy ones
to Steve? Gentleman at the back.
Megan, so is it fair to say that a lot of the people that are involved in your programs are relatively similar, not so much in the sort of demographic diversity, but in terms of what the role is going to be, the background? They will, I'm guessing, mostly graduates, mostly go into professional services. How would you deal with a much more diverse group of employees? So you're not just inducting those who are going to do professional services, you're inducting the domestic staff who would work in your offices and all the other teams that might well have a very different approach to the organisation and a different relationship with them.
Yeah, so if I'm getting the question right, it's looking at that, you might have a relatively similar group coming in, but how do you look at it then if it's maybe across many departments? Yeah, Okay, so a great question, of course, one that we will all face. I'm obviously in a large-scale corporation and recruiting in big numbers to particular service lines or business areas. We also have another area called enabling services, enabling functions, and they're a very wide, diverse group. That group itself, although it's professional services, the things that they're coming into our business to do are really wide and varied, so there is an element of catering across that. But I bring it right back to the core principle, human-centered design. That's how you address that fundamentally. If you've got the data up front of where you're bringing your people from, where they're going to, and what they will need to do at that early stage of their career, you can equally design a program that's agile, flexible. I mean, that with minimal work in the exercises that they do in the classroom, I could flip this to any part of our business or any other business, actually, because the principles that got us there are agnostic of where you're aiming to deliver your program. Does that help? Okay, thank you. Good question.
Any other questions? Okay, well, I've got one for you that I've been noting down here.
I thought I was getting off light.
I wondered how you are really ensuring that you're addressing the user needs that you've identified. How do you know that you're actually doing it, and how do you know it's actually impacting?
Yeah. Again, a great question. Ron touched on this about capturing your data really quickly. I was skipping on because I could see time disappearing very quickly. In that 5DI process, you seen the second part, the sort of the discover. It's about research. So if you take that forward to the end of the program, and what you're looking to do at the end of that is gather data to see, have you landed it right? There's a couple of areas you need to test. You need to test with the individual, and you need to test with the business. Business is better done later on to give them time to bed in, demonstrate their skill sets on client work. You get that from the managers, maybe some further grades up. On the program itself, so what you didn't see there is we had an app, simple little app, nice and easily designed, nothing overly complicated. And they had that with them all the time. So their agenda was on it, their push notifications were on it, but also we had embedded micro polls. So every session, everything that they did, we had 3 questions. Any more than 3, the fourth answer is not reflective of how they're feeling. They get bored really quick. It's high energy, they want to ding, ding, ding. So three questions, and we got them to answer them after every session. So the speaker finished, please fill your poll in. If they're in the classroom, please fill your poll in. You get them to do it there and then. During the week's delivery of our first go at this program that brought about those numbers, 43,000 strikes on those micro polls. So our data was instant at the point of delivery. And that allowed us then to build, was this session okay? Was it great? Was it not so good? What will we do in the iteration phase at the end of the 5DI? How do we make that better or incrementally better? So gather your data early, make sure it's orientated to what you can then instigate from a work point of view.
All right, any other questions for either of our speakers? No?
Stunned silence.
Gentleman there.
Morton. Oh, no.
I probably shouldn't say this since we're part of the design of the program, but it doesn't look cheap, Steve. What do you do if your budget is less so to create a credible experience?
Yeah, so absolutely. I'm surprised nobody else got there. It's not cheap at that scale. It's definitely not. But again, like the first question, bringing it back to the principles, it's the design, it's the program, it's connecting to your audience. That's the real richness. We're fortunate enough as a large firm to be able to support that with some really good exercises, some great venues. But actually, if you make those deep connections, you can make that one-to-one, you can make that in small groups, big groups. If you don't have the budget, and you shouldn't be budget-driven, you should be design-driven, and then you attach the resource, one of which is finance, to what that might look like visually around people. So you're absolutely right. That's not a cheap program to put on at that scale. But it is replicable at a much lower scale. And I think that's the key, is keep design at the forefront and just build really great experiences around what you have. Stay within the constraints of your budget. Not all of my budgets across all of my inductions are as big as that one. Thanks.
Lady just there.
Thank you. It's a question for both of you, actually, and related to resource. When you have stakeholders who are really busy, who may be time poor, and you want to get them involved in a very important part of the employee experience, what do you do, or what has worked for you?
Ron, you maybe go first.
Yeah, is this on? Yeah, awesome. So I think there's a few ways. From a stakeholder perspective, I guess you want to show them what's in it for them, right? I think that's where we always need to start. What are you going to get out of this? So even if we go back to a couple of items I had in the presentation, once we understand what gets them ticking, what they care about, what the challenges are, and particularly what they're seeing not work, they have a vested interest. So I really think the groundwork is understanding what they care about and then intelligently leveraging that to help you get what you need, because actually the result is we both win. Now the other side, which isn't so nice, is the manager capability, right? Like, we have a leader in the organization. What level is our leadership at? And is that problematic for the duties they need to carry out? Because at some point, when we think about goals not being set, we've been there having managers not doing their job, there's going to be a point at some time where we're going to have to draw the line and say, actually, this is competence now we're having a problem with what you need to do. But that's the other side. So I definitely recommend what gets them ticking and leveraging that to really say, we're both going to win.
I have a slightly different perspective, equally relevant in different parts of the business I sit in. I think sometimes with senior people, when you know they're time poor, you've got to go after what would they not like to hear rather than what they want to hear. So I presented very quickly, if we don't do this, we will continue to see this trend. That trend problem for firms as large as ours and as precious as ours is attrition. Okay, when you identify a nervous trend around losing your talent, that's what you win with first. If we don't, we will continue to see. And then you create a pathway where it's easy for them to intervene, easy for them to apply, being present. Bring your leadership forward, show that they're in behind the program, and create that support top down, bottom up. So it is definitely a challenge because their time is poor. Their time is poor. But it's about what will you not get if we don't do this.
And if I may, I think that's a great point in terms of the leadership piece. Something I practically put in play there was I got the CEO himself, this guy who's flying, roughly 200 days a year, to sit down and do a professional recording and explain the purpose of the company. So rightly, as just mentioned, having that top-down approach of we believe in onboarding, we're going to invest our time in onboarding, is going to send a huge, huge impact downward.
Any other questions? Or are you all just hungry?
It's the promise.
I just read the room then. Okay. So I'd like to thank both Steve and Ron for two very different perspectives on onboarding, which I hope you found value from. Is that a yes from you? Yeah, I thought you had. I could see a lot of you writing. So I'd like to thank both of you gentlemen very much indeed for sharing what you have today. And I hope that you'd like to show your appreciation to them.
Thank you.